Let them know Hollywood did this.
"2010's Clash of the Titans is a big-budget blockbuster so inherently epic that it by default should be one of the most exciting, most astonishing movies you can find. It features massive main characters ranging from a son of God to full-on S-tier Greek gods played by some of the most iconic actors. It takes place in an infinitely potential-rich world of Greek mythology packed with deities and men and everything in between.
What the f*** is that? What the f*** is that
I mean, it even offers an all-star roster of ancient legendary monsters that carry incredibly exhilarating power through their name alone.
And let this day be cursed by we who ready to wake the Kraken!
And yet, for whatever reason, none of that stuff in this movie feels even close to epic. The characters are uninteresting blank shells who couldn't carry even a low-budget indie movie about paying rent. The monsters are dumb CGI noise that could be traded with any other without it making a bit of difference. I mean, the world of the story as a whole, for some odd reason, is so lackluster and boring that the first sight of it will turn your insides and outsides into uncaring stone. To be fair though, I wouldn't go as far as to say that Clash of the Titans is the most terrible movie of its kind. I don't think we're on Gods of Egypt levels here overall. But it is very weird how you can have a movie with Zeus and Hades and Medusa and the freaking Kraken and then deliver an experience so titanically meh. And if I did have to find the crux for why that is, I would argue it to be the fact that this movie is simply too epic for its own good, to the point where it's that inherent epicness of its characters and monsters and world that makes the whole thing crumble under the pressure. And so today, that's the giant question mark we're gonna fly straight at. We'll look into the different epic aspects of this film to hopefully find out why they're unable to live up to their inherent epicness and what are the consequences that follow. Here's a few pitfalls to watch out for when making an inherently epic movie, and how 2010's Clash of the Titans fails at it. The character issue here is that all the massive strong characters in practice are actually so tiny and weak that they get trampled by the level of epicness they're meant to play on. On the human side, we have our main hero Perseus, the illegitimate result of Zeus performing the ultimate dunk on the human king, at least in the eyes of 15-year-old boys.
And visited the chamber where the king's wife was sleeping.
What kind of a Zeus? These nuts?
Perseus grew mad with rage.
Which, by the way, we learn not down the line through some big meaningful reversal, but instead right away with free face value exposition. And surprisingly, the launching pad for Perseus' character is actually very strong. He essentially lives as a humble fisherman with his human family who found and raised him until one day when Hades decides to be a douchebag and randomly kill them all without having any clue who they even are. Which then leads to Perseus generating this incredibly strong drive to take revenge on Hades. But before that drive can even fully form, it then suddenly gets smothered in the crib by the movie. Because according to others, Perseus can't just go after Hades. Instead, he first has to go find a way to kill the Kraken and then do that so that Hades will be weakened enough to take on head-to-head. And even though Perseus never gets any sort of evidence for any of this, even though none of it in the context of the movie ultimately is even true, he nonetheless just turns his hateful drive down a few notches and is like, yeah, okay.
Let's go.
The result of which is that most of Perseus' existence in practice comes down to just three things. Firstly, going to places where other people either take him or tell him to go, whether it's a temple where the next story beat happens to happen or some mythological place he's never been to and thus has no reason to personally count on.
If the Kraken can be killed, the Stygian witches will know how.
Let's go.
Secondly, overcoming dangers and obstacles by being saved from them by others, whether it's from giant CGI scorpions or poison in his veins. And thirdly, being given things for free to aid his journey. And as with the earlier stuff, not because of what is done or earned, but instead simply because of who he is.
Of course. You had some help. A sword, the Pegasus.
A shield, a coin to the underworld, a hot girlfriend.
You're the son of Zeus, after all.
And so ultimately, Perseus, the son of Zeus, ends up being such an empty vessel who doesn't do things on his own or even on his own volition that everything he does do himself could have been done by Peter, the son of Jim, who lives just down the street from me. Then on the deity side, we have, for example, Zeus, the god of all gods, which is a name that comes with a certain level of expectations, such as... Well, in this movie, you don't get that. In here, pretty much all Zeus does is hang out in his green screen heaven, repeatedly whining about the fact that humans apparently don't pray to him anymore.
I created them. Have I heard his prayer? And they reward my love with as a price. Defiance?
And instead of doing anything about that himself, he just hands the entire task to his evil brother Hades. You know, despite the fact that he's evil and mad at him for locking him in the underworld and that he will surely double-cross him. I mean, look at this dude. How do you not expect him to betray you?
I serve myself.
What? No.
I have, since you cheated me. You'll watch while my blessed avenger devours.
And yeah, so ultimately, the god of all gods in this movie is pretty much the equivalent of a lazy, entitled idiot influencer who's pissed at his followers for not liking his posts anymore, even though he doesn't even post anymore. Then there's also Hades, who we'll get to later on, and that's it, because all the other gods were just cut out of the movie.
Father, we need them more.
Then, as one more epic character, we have the All King cocked by Zeus, who seeks revenge for that by killing Perseus, all of which initially does make him seem pretty noteworthy. But then all of a sudden, he takes one injury in battle and runs away like a little bitch, so that he can instead be replaced by big CGI scorpions, because what else do you expect? Although he does come back later on to... There's many characters here that are fine because they're not necessarily required to be anything more, but these ones that are required to be more just end up coming off as much less. Because I mean, if Michael Scott from The Office performs bigger, more significant actions than Zeus from f***ing heaven, then maybe there's a problem. If the Son of God can never on his own rise up to meet that epic title, the only thing he can do is get crushed by the epic inherent weight of it. The monster problem here is that none of the legendary monsters are allowed to live up to their inherent epicness in the context of the story, or just don't organically belong in the story at all. First off, we have, for example, the Kraken that serves as the main story engine for the movie. The reason we go on a journey at all is because Hades shows up at the human capital and informs everyone that
In 10 days, when the sun is eclipsed, I will unleash the Kraken. Argos will be swept from the earth, and all of you with it.
And the issue is that this movie never builds its Kraken up to the level of epicness that comes with that name, aside from a few verbal mentions. We get voiceover at the beginning that the Kraken apparently destroyed the Titans who preceded the current gods.
Convinced his brother Hades to create a beast so strong it could defeat their parents.
We get multiple different characters saying that the Kraken is a big deal, as if they somehow have first-hand experience.
A colossal elemental beast. It doesn't think, it doesn't feel. Even the gods fear it.
But as to actual visual evidence backing any of this stuff up, the only shred of it comes when our heroes arrive at this ruined mountainside that apparently is the place where the Kraken defeated the Titans.
The Garden of Stygia, where the Kraken defeated the Titans.
Which doesn't really add up because all we see is a pile of rocks, not to mention the fact that we all know the Kraken as a sea creature and not a mountain creature, so now you're just actively chipping away at the pre-existing power that name holds. It's the same thing as with the giant scorpions, for example. The only reason we're given to fear them is the fact that they're big CGI scorpions, which I guess can work up to a point, but not with your main legendary monsters. You can't just put the Kraken in your movie and then never build it beyond occasional verbal exposition where apparently it's so mighty that it defeated these other mighty creatures we've never seen either. If you want us to view your Kraken as a big deal, then show us why. Make it earn its name in the context of your movie. Because if you just ride on the Kraken's name alone for 90 minutes and then reveal it as an ugly version of Godzilla who stands still for a couple minutes without physically interacting with anyone only to then instantly die, guess what your audience will feel? They're gonna be excited upon first hearing the name Kraken, they're gonna gradually lose that excitement the longer the name goes without reinforcement, and then they're just gonna think they got scammed. And then on the other side we have Medusa, who actually is allowed to live up to her name. We get to go on this ominous journey to her lair, we get to understand the way she hunts her prey, we get to see her disturbing work before seeing her. And then at the end we're rewarded with an encounter that, despite showing her in full way too early, is really genuinely challenging and costly and exhilarating to watch.
What's that noise, Dave? What's that noise? What the
But the issue with Medusa is that she's less an integral part of the story and more a shameless DLC addition solely meant to milk the power her name holds. See, the way she becomes a part of our journey in the first place is that these witches are saying that there's no way to take down the Kraken until they're forced to think outside the box.
There is a solution. Medusa, anything of flesh, is killed by her gaze.
Meaning that we don't go after Medusa because she has any kind of established connection to the Kraken or anything else going on, but just because she's this whole other thing that's so inherently overpowered that it's gonna solve any problem in any story, including this one. Which is giving me this weird feeling of PTSD, but I'm not so sure why.
Trident can break any cursed sea.
And it's that connection of Medusa being the only organic solution to our specific problem that this film desperately needed. Like, maybe Medusa is the only remaining monster that the gods or even the Kraken in the past couldn't take down, which not only connects Medusa to the story but also allows you to dig deeper into the Kraken's history and why it went away. You can argue that, well, that doesn't make sense because it's not a realistic part of Greek mythology, but you know what? Neither is the f***ing Kraken.
I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care.
Let me tell you, we don't care.
I'm not saying this is the answer, but I am saying that the answer requires you to find some way to make Medusa an integral part of the story. Because otherwise it feels like you're writing yourself into a corner and then just blindly throwing stuff in without ever actually earning it. Because this mentality of and then is literally how little children write their stories.
The screenwriter behind this summer's blockbuster, the new Fast and the Furious movie, Chris Morgan. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Chris. And then there's a hole in the train. And then the car brought the box, then the police went in.
And so, when adding in monsters or whatever MacGuffins with inherent pre-established epicness, you need to earn it from both sides. Make the monsters earn the epicness of their name in the context of your movie, as well as make your movie earn the right to carry the epicness that those monsters and their name brings. The world problem here is the fact that this movie's sense of logic and coherence isn't strong enough to carry all the inherent epicness and ultimately crumbles under its pressure. The first half of how this manifests is that the power dynamics make no sense, which you can for example find with Hades. Not even touching on the fact that Hades was somehow able to create a creature stronger than any god and still for some reason doesn't just use it against Zeus the same way he used it against the Titans. There's massive discrepancies with Hades himself compared to other characters. At first, the reason for going on this whole Kraken killing journey is that Hades apparently is currently far too powerful to take on and will be weakened only when
If the Kraken falls, Hades will be weak enough for you to strike a deathly blow.
But then literally 5 minutes later, we get this scene where Hades himself explains that the reason he needs to hire the old king to do his dirty work is because he's still very weak and in need of time to grow his powers.
I am growing stronger until I possess my full power. You will be my weapon.
So then, which is it? Are we going on this journey to weaken Hades, or is Hades waiting for us to go on this journey to grow stronger from his weak state? And it doesn't really matter anyway, because after the Kraken is killed, there's no evident change in Hades' strength whatsoever, and instead of any kind of killing blow as promised, a blade powered with Zeus's lightning just sends him back down into the underworld. In other words, Hades as well as Zeus's epic powers seem to shift and change based on what the movie in the moment needs them to be.
We need the love of humans.
You need it. I survive on their fear.
And I am now more powerful than you because I made one city afraid, which is a bit surprising actually considering there's thousands and thousands of cities and towns down there.
And then there's plenty of other similar stuff like Medusa, whose god-created curse is so powerful that it will work even on the creature more powerful than any god. It's not like her gaze kinda slows the Kraken down a bit to give us a chance to destroy it ourselves. No, it just kills it instantly because apparently Greek gods are powerful enough to create these insanely overpowered weapons, but just too dumb to actually use them themselves. We have massive scorpions apparently born from Hades' curse that somehow are able to be controlled by these rock people. We have a kingdom strong enough to take on the gods, but still weak enough to be overrun by a tiny pack of skinny poor people. We have future-telling oracles who can't actually tell the future, which is a combination that is never explained. You know, the list goes on.
You will die, son of Zeus.
That's a lie. Come.
Written is history. You will die.
We don't care. Let me tell you, we don't care.
And the second half of how this problem manifests is that the character motivations make no sense, which again is very much the case with Hades. The reason Hades can't just teleport in and kill Perseus himself like he did with all the guards at the start is because he can't let Zeus know that he's betraying him, even though Zeus never barred him from killing Perseus in the first place. But at the same time, he can still lethally poison Perseus with his venom.
Venom from Hades.
So instant disappearance is something Zeus would notice, but a slow agonizing death is something he doesn't. Okay. Like even at the end where Hades could finally just instantly kill Perseus as we've seen before, he instead turns into these skinny flying demons that get defeated by a curtain because otherwise I guess his inherent epicness would just end the movie. We have Perseus refusing to use anything given by the gods on his journey except when the story requires it and he doesn't mind.
Thanks.
We have Zeus being an idiot. We have a hot girl who exists only to serve Perseus' needs, which in my personal experiences isn't realistic at all. I mean, we have this big main thematic conflict of gods versus men and the rift between them.
To whom do we direct our gratitude for this glorious bounty?
Spiros, please.
Poseidon, Zeus.
They reward my love with defiance?
Right, so essentially the gods don't give out food because the humans don't pray anymore, and the humans don't pray anymore because the gods don't give out food. But it's never shown how this cycle began. It's never explained why people stop praying. Like if in this world it's common knowledge that gods are real and that saying a few words is enough to feed you, why would anyone not do that? Why would the poor people not do that? It's literally free. I'd understand if the rich in their hubris had banned religion or something, but that's not the case. There's nothing in here that would make this central thematic conflict make sense. It's just that that's how the movie says it is, so that's how it is. Well, here's how I say this. Clash of the Titans holds an incredible amount of inherent epicness, but it's not capable of abiding by it. It's not capable of building up to or earning it. It's not even capable of handling it in a logically sound way. And that's why it isn't an epic blockbuster as much as it is just more forgettable, lackluster Hollywood noise.